First Contact Folly. High Commander Vexthor of the Drachnid Empire's Stellar Reconnaissance Division felt his primary heart skip a beat as the preliminary scans flooded his neural interface. The binary star system before him held something unprecedented, a thriving civilization on what should have been an uninhabitable world. His massive research vessel, the Eternal Seeker, hung in the outer reaches of the system, running passive scans that defied everything the Empire knew about planetary development. Impossible, he muttered, his scaled fingers dancing across the bioorganic control interface. Cross-reference these atmospheric readings again. His science officer, Kalera, quickly confirmed what the scans revealed. The readings are accurate, High Commander. Despite the harsh radiation from both stars, the third planet maintains a stable biosphere. And there's more. We're detecting artificial structures. Lots of them. The massive view screen shifted, revealing a blue-green world that should have been a scorched wasteland. Instead, it teemed with life, and more importantly, showed clear signs of technological advancement. Orbital structures glinted in the dual starlight, and regular energy signatures pulsed from the surface. Initial civilizational assessment. Vexthor demanded, all four of his eyes fixed on the impossible planet. Kalera's tendrils writhed in confusion as she analyzed the data. Contradictory, High Commander. Their orbital presence suggests early spacefaring capability, perhaps Class 3 on the Imperial scale. However, she paused, running the analysis again. The energy signatures were detecting utilized principles our scientists deemed theoretically impossible centuries ago. Vexthor's scaled crest rose in interest. The Drachnid Empire had ruled the known galaxy for 10,000 years, cataloging and subjugating hundreds of species. They had long since determined the natural progression of civilizations, the physical laws that govern technological advancement. This discovery threatened to upend millennia of established theory. "Prepare a first contact protocol," he ordered, his voice carrying the weight of imperial authority. "But maintain our distance. Something about this doesn't add up." As his crew scrambled to comply, Vexthor studied the sensor readings more carefully. The civilization before them, these humans, according to their intercepted communications, had achieved something his scientists had declared impossible. Their orbital habitats somehow maintained stability, despite the crushing gravitational forces of the binary system. Their vessels moved with a grace that suggested inertial control far beyond their apparent technological level. "High Commander." Kalera's usually melodious voice carried an edge of panic. Multiple objects just appeared at the system's edge. They just emerged from nothing. The view screen shifted again, and Vexthor felt his secondary heart join his primary in arrhythmic shock. A fleet of vessels had indeed appeared, seemingly materializing from the void itself. Their design was unlike anything in the Imperial database, sleek yet angular, with no visible propulsion systems or weapon emplacements. But most disturbing of all was their size. The smallest of them dwarfed the Eternal Seeker, and the largest. "By the First Emperor," Vexthor breathed. "That can't be real." The vessel at the fleet's center stretched for nearly 10 kilometers, its hull composed of overlapping plates that seemed to drink in the starlight. No visible seams marred its surface, making it appear as if it had been grown rather than constructed. As he watched, sections of its hull shifted and flowed like liquid metal, revealing and concealing various structures in a hypnotic dance. "We're being hailed," Kalera reported, her tendrils now practically tying themselves in knots. "The transmission method. Sir, they're using quantum-entangled particles for instantaneous communication. That's beyond even theoretical Imperial science." Vexthor felt the weight of history on his shoulders. First contact scenarios were delicate enough with primitive species. But this civilization had somehow advanced along a completely different technological path than any the Empire had encountered. Their very existence challenged everything the Drachnids thought they knew about scientific progress. "Accept the transmission," he ordered, straightening his ceremonial armor. "Let's see what these humans have to say." The view screen flickered, and Vexthor found himself face to face with a creature that seemed simultaneously primitive and unsettling. The human had no scales, no proper number of eyes, and displayed its teeth in what his stenobiologists would later explain was a smile rather than a threat display. "Greetings, visitors," the human said, its words automatically translated by the ship's systems. "I'm Admiral Sarah Chen of the Terran Defense Force. I see you found our little corner of space." Vexthor began the formal imperial greeting, but the words died in his throat as his tactical officer suddenly screamed, "High Commander, their fleet. It's not just the ships we can see. I'm detecting distortions, hundreds of them. The visible vessels are just the tip of the solar wind." The human's smile widened slightly. "I see your sensors are quite good. Yes, most of our fleet prefers to remain in parallel space. Makes things less crowded, you understand. Now, perhaps you'd like to explain why you've been scanning our colony world without introducing yourselves first." The High Commander of the Drachnid Empire's most advanced reconnaissance vessel suddenly felt very, very small. He had come expecting to find primitives barely reaching for the stars. Instead, he had stumbled upon something far more dangerous, a civilization that had completely ignored the established rules of technological progress and forged their own path to the stars. As he prepared to respond, Vexthor couldn't shake the feeling that the galaxy was about to change forever. The humans had not only survived in an impossible environment, they had mastered it in ways the Empire had never imagined possible. And now, standing before their fleet, he realized that the Empire's assumption of technological superiority might have just met its first real challenge in 10,000 years. The measure of humanity. The Grand Assembly chamber aboard the Eternal Seeker had never felt so small. High Commander Vexthor watched as his most skilled diplomats faced off against a single human representative, and for the first time in his career, he felt genuine uncertainty about the outcome. Ambassador Julia Martinez sat calmly at the crystalline negotiation table, her dark eyes scanning the assembled Drachnid delegation with polite interest. She seemed completely unfazed by the fact that she was surrounded by beings twice her size, each bearing the ceremonial armor of an empire that controlled thousands of worlds. "Let me ensure I understand correctly," Martine said, her voice carrying easily through the chamber. "You're offering to integrate Earth and its colonies into the Drachnid Empire, providing us with advanced technology and protection in exchange for our allegiance." First Speaker Kovacs puffed up his ceremonial crest, missing the subtle amusement in the human's tone. "Indeed, the Empire's generosity is legendary. Your species has shown remarkable resilience, surviving in such hostile conditions. Under Imperial guidance, you could flourish properly." Martinez's smile reminded Vexthor uncomfortably of a predator's grin. "That's a very generous offer. However, I'm curious about something." She pulled out a small device, and suddenly the chamber was filled with a holographic display of the local sector. "These are your Empire's current borders, correct?" The Drachnids nodded, and Vexthor felt his scales tighten as he began to understand where this was going. "Interesting," Martinez continued, "because according to our surveys, these 12 systems you claim, the highlighted worlds pulsed red. They'd been under human protection for the last 50 years. We've been quietly monitoring your expansion, ensuring you didn't encounter any of our more vulnerable protectorate species before they were ready." The chamber erupted in hisses of shock and outrage. Kovacs's scales flushed dark with anger. "Impossible. Our surveys showed no signs of advanced civilization in those systems." "Of course they didn't." Martinez's smile widened slightly. "We didn't want them to. Just as your sensors only detected our fleet when we chose to reveal it. You see, the Drachnid Empire isn't the only civilization that practices stewardship of developing species. We just have a different approach." Vexthor watched as she stood, somehow seeming to tower over the larger Drachnids. "For instance, that primitive colony world you were scanning. It's not a colony at all. It's a research station studying the effects of binary star systems on planetary formation. The harsh conditions you detected are part of a controlled experiment. The implications hit Vexthor like a plasma burst. The humans hadn't just survived in impossible conditions, they had created them deliberately. They weren't struggling against the binary star's radiation, they were manipulating it for scientific research. But your technological development pattern, Kovacs sputtered. It defies all known progression models. Martinez actually laughed at that. Commander, has it occurred to you that your known progression models might be incredibly limited? You've spent millennia following a single path of technological development, assuming it was the only way. Humanity. We threw out the rulebook. When conventional physics said something was impossible, we didn't accept it. We found ways around it. She gestured, and new holographic images appeared. Human chips phasing through solid matter, energy patterns that shouldn't exist, and structures that seem to bend reality itself. We don't just build technology, she continued. We dream it. When conventional engines weren't enough, we developed quantum displacement drives. When traditional materials failed, we created adaptive metamaterials that rewrite their own atomic structure. When normal space got too crowded, we learned to slip between dimensional barriers. The chamber had fallen completely silent. Even Kovacs's ceremonial crest had deflated. Vexthor fought to maintain his composure as he realized the full implications of what they were facing. So, Martine said, her voice gentle but firm, perhaps instead of discussing our integration into your empire, we should talk about establishing diplomatic relations between equals. And maybe, if you're interested, we could share some insights about those alternative technological paths you never considered. Vexthor stepped forward before Kovacs could respond, his military training recognizing when a tactical retreat was necessary. Ambassador Martinez, you've given us much to consider. Perhaps we could discuss this proposal in more detail. Of course, she replied, and for the first time, her smile seemed genuine. After all, humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology or our adaptability. It's our ability to see potential allies where others might see only subjects or rivals. As the diplomatic team began to discuss terms, Vexthor couldn't help but marvel at how completely the humans had outmaneuvered them. They had come expecting to find primitives in need of guidance, only to discover they had been the ones stumbling around in the dark all along. The Empire would never be the same after this day, and as he watched Martinez calmly explain concepts that shattered millennia of imperial science, Vexthor realized that might not be a bad thing at all. Battle of the Void. Supreme War Master Kraz couldn't accept defeat without a battle. While the diplomats talked of peace and cooperation, he had secretly marshaled the Empire's 7th Battle Fleet. 2,000 of the most advanced Drachnid warships hung in the void, their crews ready to restore the Empire's honor. The humans had cleverly deceived them with illusions and trickery. It was time to show them real power. All ships, battle formations, he commanded from his flagship, the World Breaker. Launch the attack the moment we emerge from hyperspace. Show these upstart apes the true might of the Empire. The fleet erupted into normal space near the human research world, weapons charged and shields at maximum. Kraz expected to catch the humans off guard, to prove their earlier display was mere deception. Instead, a single human vessel waited for them. The ship was small by Imperial standards, barely the size of a light cruiser. Its hull gleamed with an odd shifting iridescence, like oil on water. No weapons were visible, no shields detected. It simply hung there, seemingly oblivious to the massive fleet bearing down on it. "This is Captain Elena Santos of the TDS Prometheus," a calm voice transmitted across all frequencies. "Your fleet is in violation of the ongoing diplomatic negotiations. Please stand down." Kraz's scales bristled with rage. One ship. They send one ship. He slammed his fist on his command throne. Open fire. Destroy this insult to our power. 2,000 ships unleashed their fury. Plasma torpedoes, relativistic kill vehicles, quantum disruptors. The finest weapons in the Imperial arsenal converged on the lone human vessel. The space around it lit up brighter than a supernova. When the energy dissipated, the Prometheus hung unchanged. Not a scratch marred its surface. Unfortunate, Captain Santos sighed. Initiating Protocol Omega. The Prometheus's hull began to ripple, the iridescent surface flowing like quicksilver. Suddenly, space itself seemed to hiccup. Krastful felt a sensation he never experienced before, as if reality had suddenly developed a stutter. "What's happening?" he demanded as alerts blared across his bridge. "Report." His science officer's voice trembled. "The human vessel. It's not just one ship anymore. It's everywhere. Quantum signatures multiplying. Reality junction points forming. It's like it exists in thousands of places simultaneously." The Prometheus hadn't multiplied. Instead, it seemed to occupy every possible position it could be in, all at once. Thousands of overlapping images of the same ship filled space around the Imperial fleet, each one as solid and real as the original. "Quantum superposition on a macroscopic scale," Santos explained, her voice now coming from seemingly everywhere at once. "One ship, infinite possibilities, all realized simultaneously. Would you like to see what our weapons can do when they exist in multiple states of reality at once?" Before Krastful could respond, the Prometheus, all 1,000+ quantum instances of it, opened fire. But these weren't conventional weapons. Each shot didn't just impact its target. It hit it in every possible way it could hit, across multiple quantum states. Imperial shields, designed to stop normal weapons in normal space, might as well have been tissue paper. Ships began disappearing from the Imperial formation. Not exploding, not breaking apart, simply ceasing to exist as the quantum weaponry erased them from reality itself. Each shot from the Prometheus didn't just destroy its target. It eliminated every possible version of that target across countless quantum realities. "Stop!" Krastful screamed as he watched his fleet dissolve into nothingness. "In the name of the Emperor, stop!" The quantum echoes of the Prometheus paused their attack. Half of the Imperial fleet had simply ceased to exist, while the rest hung motionless, their crews frozen in terror. "The funny thing about humanity," Santos mused, her voice echoing across quantum states, "is that we never accepted impossibility. When we hit the quantum barrier in our physics, we didn't stop. We asked ourselves, what if we could weaponize quantum uncertainty itself? What if we could exist in all possible states at once, and choose which one becomes real?" The quantum echoes began to collapse back into a single ship. Your empire built bigger guns, stronger shields, faster ships. But you never looked beyond conventional physics. You never questioned the fundamental nature of reality itself. That's why you'll never understand how one human ship could defeat your entire fleet. As the remaining Imperial ships began an ignominious retreat, Krastful stared at the sensor readings in disbelief. The Prometheus hadn't just defeated them. It had demonstrated that the Empire's most powerful weapons were literally billions of years behind human technology. "Tell your Emperor," Santos called after the fleeing ships, "that humanity is ready to share our knowledge, to help your species grow beyond the limitations you've placed on yourselves. But we will not be conquered. We will not be subjugated. And we will not allow the Empire to threaten the species under our protection." The Prometheus vanished, not through any visible means of propulsion, but simply by choosing to exist somewhere else in the quantum probability space. Krastful slumped in his command throne, his mighty fleet in ruins, his pride shattered. The Empire had ruled through superior force for 10,000 years. But how could they fight an enemy that didn't just bend the rules of physics? They rewrote them entirely. As his remaining ships limped home, he realized that the galaxy had entered a new age. The era of Imperial dominance was over, ended not by a superior military force, but by a species that had simply chosen to think differently about the nature of reality itself. The Admiral's Gambit. Admiral Sarah Chen stood before the holographic representation of the Drachnid Imperial Palace, her expression unreadable as reports flooded in from across the galaxy. The Empire was fracturing, not from external pressure, but from within. The demonstration of human capabilities had shattered their certainty of technological superiority, and with it, the foundation of their entire society. They're calling for revolution on 12 worlds, her AI assistant, HFY, reported. The younger generation of drachnids is particularly vocal. They're demanding access to human scientific principles. Chen nodded, watching as the palace's security patterns shifted and flowed. After the battle with the Prometheus, the Empire had strengthened their defenses, not that it mattered. Their most advanced systems were like stone walls against quantum manipulation. And the Imperial Guard? She asked, though she already knew the answer. Divided. Half remain loyal to the Emperor, half support the progressive faction. The Imperial Science Academy has officially requested asylum and academic exchange programs. It was happening faster than even she had anticipated. The Empire wasn't just facing military defeat, it was experiencing a cultural revolution. The mere possibility of alternative technological paths had sparked something that 10,000 years of rigid hierarchy couldn't contain. Hope. Admiral. HFY's tone shifted slightly, indicating priority information. We're detecting quantum fluctuations from the Imperial Palace. They're attempting to replicate our technology. Chen allowed herself a small smile. How close are they? Their understanding is rudimentary. They're trying to force quantum superposition through brute computational power. The energy requirements alone mooled. A brilliant flash lit up the holographic display as the Imperial Palace's primary research facility disappeared in a spectacular quantum cascade failure. And that, Chen sighed, is why we need to help them. Prepare my quantum shuttle. It's time for a direct approach. Hours later, Chen materialized in the Emperor's private chambers, bypassing every security measure the Empire possessed. The ancient Drachnid ruler, Xerxes VII, didn't even seem surprised. I wondered when you would come, he said, his scales showing the dull patina of extreme age. Have you come to end our empire? No, Your Majesty, Chen replied, taking the offered seat despite her guard's protests. I've come to save it. She gestured, and a small quantum processor appeared floating above her palm. This contains the basic principles of quantum engineering, carefully restricted to prevent more accidents like today's explosion. We're offering it to every member world of your empire. The Emperor's 4 eyes narrowed. You would arm our people against us. No, Chen leaned forward. We're giving them the tools to join us. The galaxy is changing, Your Majesty. The real threat isn't humans or drachnids. It's what's coming from intergalactic space. The chamber went silent. Chen continued, her voice grave. Our quantum sensors detected them 3 years ago. Something massive, moving between galaxies. They'll reach the outer rim in less than a century. That's why we revealed ourselves now. That's why we're pushing your empire to evolve. She stood, her uniform rippling with quantum possibilities. Humanity learned early that survival doesn't come from domination, but from adaptation and cooperation. Your empire has the potential to be more than conquerors. You could be innovators, explorers, partners in defending against what's coming. And if we refuse? The Emperor asked, though his tone suggested he already knew the answer. Then your empire dies anyway, Chen replied softly. Not by our hands, but by the natural evolution of knowledge and technology. Your people have seen what's possible now. They won't unsee it. The Emperor was silent for a long moment, his ancient eyes studying the quantum processor still floating above Chen's palm. Finally, he reached out and took it. How do we begin? Chen's smile was genuine. You already have. The progressive faction, the riots, the scientists begging for knowledge. We've been quietly providing quantum theory to select individuals for months. The revolution was inevitable. We just helped guide it toward collaboration instead of destruction. The Emperor's scales shifted in what might have been amusement. The Admiral's gambit. You never intended to fight us at all. Every move, from the first contact to the battle with the Prometheus, was calculated to force us to evolve. War is inefficient, Chen shrugged. Cultural revolution, guided by hope and possibility. That's how you transform an empire. Now, shall we discuss how to prepare our civilizations for what's coming? As they began planning humanity's greatest technological sharing initiative, Chen reflected on how far both species had come. The Drachnids had learned that true power came from innovation rather than domination, while humanity had proven that the most effective weapon wasn't quantum technology or superior firearms. It was hope. Hope, and the promise of a better future, could topple empires and forge alliances that mere force of arms never could. Legacy of Stars. 5 years after the Admiral's Gambit, the Drachnid Human Research Institute hung in the quantum void between realities. The massive structure existed simultaneously in normal space and 17 parallel dimensions, its architecture defying conventional physics. Inside, members of both species worked side by side, pushing the boundaries of what was possible. High Commander Vexthor, now Chief of Joint Scientific Operations, stood beside Admiral Chen as they watched their latest project take shape. Through the quantum blast viewport, a new type of vessel was under construction, one that combined Drachnid biological engineering with human quantum mechanics. The synthesis is beautiful, Vexthor admitted, his scales shimmering with pride. Even a year ago, I wouldn't have believed such a thing possible. The ship before them pulsed with life, its biomechanical hull flowing like liquid metal, while quantum fields danced across its surface. It was neither purely human nor Drachnid in design, but something entirely new. A true fusion of both civilizations' strengths. That's the thing about possibility, Chen replied, watching as construction drones wove quantum-entangled living metal into the hull. Once you stop accepting limitations, you find that the universe is far more flexible than anyone imagined. Their contemplation was interrupted by a priority alert from HFY. Admiral, Commander, the Deep Space Quantum Array has new data on the intergalactic objects. A holographic display materialized between them, showing the vast darkness between galaxies. The objects that had first prompted humanity to accelerate the Empire's development were now clearly visible. Vast geometric structures, each larger than a solar system, moving with purpose toward the Milky Way. How long? Vexthor asked, his secondary heart beating faster. 87 years until first contact, HFY reported. The quantum wake they're generating suggests technology far beyond even our current capabilities. Chen studied the data with intense focus. And the Joint Defense Fleet. The first wave of synthesis-class vessels will be ready in 3 years. The quantum fold network connecting all former Imperial worlds is operating at 97% efficiency. The biological quantum computers are evolving faster than projected. Vexthor turned to Chen, his expression serious. Do you think we'll be ready? Ready? Chen smiled. Look at what we've accomplished in just 5 years. Your people have adapted to quantum mechanics faster than we did. The younger generation of Drachnids is already proposing theories that our scientists never considered. By combining your species' gift for biological engineering with our quantum mechanics. She gestured at the synthesis under construction. We're not just getting ready for war, Commander. We're evolving both our species beyond anything we could have achieved alone. The alert chimed again, and a new figure shimmered into existence. Ambassador Martinez, now head of the Joint Species Council. You're both needed in the Quantum Forum. The Hive Collective has finally responded to our alliance proposal. The Hive Collective, another former rival of the Empire that had watched the Drachnids' transformation with great interest. They weren't the only ones. Species across the galaxy had seen what cooperation between humans and Drachnids had produced, and many were eager to join what was becoming the greatest technological and cultural exchange in galactic history. As they made their way to the forum through quantum space, Vexthor reflected on how far they'd come. The Empire had ruled through force for 10,000 years, seeing all other species as either threats or subjects. Now, They were part of something far greater, a coalition of species working together to defend not just their galaxy, but the very nature of life itself. "You know," he said to Chen as they walked, "when you first revealed your quantum technology, many of us thought it was the end of everything we'd built. Instead, it was just the beginning." Chen nodded. "That's the real legacy we're creating here. Not just new technology or defenses against the unknown. We're showing that different species, different ways of thinking, different approaches to the universe itself, they're not threats to be conquered. They're opportunities to become something greater than we could ever be alone." They materialized in the Quantum Forum, where representatives from 100 species gathered to discuss the future of the galaxy. The synthesis prototype hung in the void outside, a testament to what cooperation could achieve. And far beyond, in the darkness between galaxies, something vast and unknowable approached, not as a threat to individual species anymore, but as a challenge to be met by a united galaxy. The legacy of stars, it seemed, would not be written by conquest or domination, but by the simple truth humanity had tried to teach the Empire from the beginning. The universe is vast enough for every species to find its own path to the stars, and only by walking those paths together could they hope to face whatever waited in the infinite dark beyond.